Hello, this is a recap of an American series called Clickbait Part 2. Don't forget to subscribe. Let's begin. After being found in Kurt's house and denying having any kind of relationship with him, both Sophie and Kurt are brought to the police station for questioning. Sophie now sits in front of Detective Luke and Roshan and is being asked about her relationship with Kurt. She finally admits that she had an affair with him 6 months ago. Her reason for visiting Kurt was to know for sure if he killed her husband. Sophie also reveals that she initiated the relationship with Kurt and ended it because he had started to fall in love with her. Before she leaves, Roshan tells her that if Kurt is really the culprit, she will have to testify about the relationship publicly. Sophie then returns home to Pia, who informs her that Nick's workplace has organized a memorial for him. The next morning, everyone is in the living room when Ethan sees a video of Kurt being arrested. Sophia tries to stop them from watching it, but Pia insists they do. Ethan recognizes Kurt as his school teacher, but is confused why he would be arrested. Pia realizes that Kurt's arrested has to do something with Sophie. She takes her aside and asks her if she was at the police station last night. It is finally revealed to Pia that Kurt and Sophie were having an affair. An urged Pia reminds Sophie that if Kurt is the one who killed Nick, it will all be her fault. As Pia barks out of the room, we see Ethan has been listening to their conversation all along without saying anything. He takes his skateboard and goes out, in spite of Sophia asking him to stay home. She goes out to look for him, but is mooted by the reporters again. She somehow manages to get past them and goes to the park he usually skateboards in. Sophia doesn't find Ethan there, but she notices a woman nearby watching her. She had seen her earlier at their house as well. Sophie calls the woman out for following her. The nervous lady introduced herself as Emma. To Sophie's disbelief, she claimed to be dating Nick before his death. Emma explains that she is from LA, where Nick used to travel frequently. They met on a dating app called Too Smitten, where Nick went by the name Danny Walters. Sophia doesn't buy into the woman's bullshit at first, but begins to believe her when she mentions they start talking in March, around the time Nick found out about Sophia cheating on him. She curses at Emma, gets inside her car, and breaks down crying. Pia calls her, informing her that they have found Ethan. Sophie goes to them and asks Ethan to come home with her. She also tells Pia about her encounter with Emma. Pia looks for the Too Smitten app on her phone and finds a detective profile by the name Danny Walters. She assures Sophie that she will find out if Emma's story is true. Then Pia contacts her computer genius friend Vince and asks him to find out about Danny Walters. Later, the TV shows the news of Kurt's being arrested. People start to conspire about Kurt's relationship with Sophie, and rumors about their affair start going around. Sophie asks her family to turn the TV off and leave for Nick's workplace for the moment. There, Sophie is approached by one of Nick's students, Jenny, who vaguely tells her that Nick was close to a girl in the basketball team before Matt intervenes and takes Sophie away. The murmurs start and Matt gives a speech. Sophie gets overwhelmed and walks out. On her way out, a woman insults her, resulting in Sophie throwing a glass of water to her face. She immediately regretted and cries as the other escort her out. At night, Pia shows her a picture from Danny's deactivated profile and confirms that it was in fact Nick's. He had been cheating on Sophie for 2 years. A heartbroken Sophie cries while holding her husband's picture. In the following scene, we are showing Emma and Nick together on a bed. Few days before his disappearance, she received flowers and balloons from Nick while at work. The day he disappeared, she found out while she was at gym. Emma already knows Nick was married, but he had promised to divorce Sophie after Ethan graduated high school. Emma followed Nick's case closely and wanted to be around people he knew to grieve his death, so she flew to Auckland. Strangely though, she claimed to be Nick's fiancé to get a bereavement discount for the flight. That day, when she met Sophie, she had come to her home to tell her about the affair. While waiting outside Sophie's house, a reporter named Ben Park gives her his card, assuming she is a reporter as well. After her encounter with Sophie, Emma comes back to her hotel room and hallucinates Nick sitting beside her on the bed. Emma seems to be losing her mind over him. The next day, she meets Detective Roshan and tells him whatever she knows about Nick in hopes of helping the case. She then goes to Nick's work and happens to meet Matt. She tells him she's just one of Nick's friends. After After that, Emma sneaks into Nick's office and is found by his co-worker Dawn. Dawn makes the woman leave, and at the same time, Bea arrives at the place. She meets Matt and asks him if he knows about Nick's affair, since he accompanied Nick to his LA trip several times. However, Matt seems to know nothing about the matter. Meanwhile, at home, Sophie is looking at casket options for Nick when she gets a message from a unknown number calling her names. Soon, she begins receiving several such messages. Someone had leaked her phone number and the credit card details online. Then, Bea goes to meet Emma in her hotel room. Emma is surprised but happy to see Nick's sister. Bea asks her if whatever she's saying is true. Instead of answering, Emma says that Nick told her about his and Bea's relationship. She knows that they went through some stuff together as a kids that brought them closer than ever. Hearing this, Bea believes that Emma was in fact in contact with Nick. She gives Emma her number for any emergency and leaves. At night, when everyone is at home, Sophie's mother, Ruby, and Nick's mother, Andrea, get into argument after Andrea insults Sophie for cheating. The situation in the family is grim. At the same time, Emma receives a call from a man who threatened her to go back to LA as soon as possible, leaving Nick's family behind. Emma freaks out after the call and drives away from the hotel in her car. She calls Bea in panic and leaves her a voicemail. Soon she realizes that she's been followed. The car swerves, crushing her car off the road. Later, Emma is in the hospital, talking to Roshan about the encounter. Roshan now believes that Nick's murder has to do something with Emma, and the person who called her was probably the perpetrator. Bea arrives at the hospital and listens to Emma's story. When Bea and Roshan are alone, Roshan informs her that they have found 3 other dating profiles that were Nick's. The pattern shows that he created profiles on different sites and talked to a different girl in all of them. Eventually, after they broke up, he deleted the profiles. Bea lies on his information to Emma, thinking she deserved to know it. She also reveals that one of the girls Nick talked to is named Mandy, an artist based in LA. When Emma returns back to LA, she looks for Mandy's social and asks her to meet. The two talk to each other and find out that Nick had said the exact same thing to them, but Mandy had looked through his lies and broken up with him, while Emma believed him. Mandy has also made a painting of Nick, which Emma buys for her. She feels betrayed by Nick and burns the painting in frustration. She also calls the reporter Ben Park and agrees to do an interview with him as Nick's girlfriend outside marriage. In the interview, she suggests that Nick abused her emotionally, so the things written on the card might just be true. In the interview is broadcasted. Nick's reputation will go downhill quickly. Ben is overjoyed to be able to launch such an important interview. His bosses asks him to find out about the other women who were involved with Nick online. Later, Ben gets an idea to visit the Brewers' home to tell them about Emma's interview and manipulate Sophie into giving an interview in order to save Ben's reputation. He poses as a delivery man and enters the home while recording with his phone. Bea soon finds him and is threatened to call the police. He tells them about Emma's interview and leaves his card on the floor for them to contact him. Later, Ben is at his home with his boyfriend Cameron. He goes into several dating apps to look for more of Nick's profiles, if there are any. Cameron helps him to search for the profiles. Meanwhile, Bea calls Roshan home and tells him about Emma's interview, only to be told that the police can't do anything because Emma didn't break the law by talking to the reporters. In fact, since the perpetrator doesn't want Emma to come forward with her story, the interview might help them catch him in case he makes a wrong move. Bea is angry to know that the police are treating her brother's reputation as a collateral damage. At night, Ben is on the internet looking up comments on Nick's posts. One comment in particular catches his attention. The comment is written by a girl named Jenny, who approached Sophie during the murmur. She fights the people who defend Nick, calling his supporters losers. The very next day, Ben goes to meet her and asks her if she had fought with Nick. Jenny hesitantly tells him to talk to another team member named Tara Wilson. Jenny had heard Nick fighting with Tara over something a while back. After talking to Jenny, Ben goes to a restaurant where Tara waitresses and asks her about Ben. However, Tara dismisses them, saying that it's nothing important. When Ben returns to the office later, he is surprised to find out that Sophie has agreed to do an interview with them before they broadcast Emma's interview, so the narrative could change a little. However, Ben's boss removes him from the case for trespassing the Brewers' home and puts another employee in the interview. Distressed at the fact fact, Ben returns home only to find that Cameron has somehow managed to find out of Nick's dating profile that had been unknown until then. Nick's name is Jeremy on the app. They have the profile, but they have to gain access to it somehow. Cameron suggests they pay someone to hack it. On the dark web, the two manage to get access to his personal information, including the number of messages he has sent to women. They see that most messages have been sent to a woman named Maggie from Sacramento. While trying to look for the girl online, they do not find her socials, but they are able to find a bookstore in her profile picture. Without wasting much time, the two drive to Sacramento the following day. The bookstore manager reveals that Maggie is actually a cat. When showing the picture from the profile, he recognizes the woman as Sarah Burton, a woman who killed herself 4 months ago. The couple is shocked to hear the information. They go through Sarah's socials and find out where her brother Simon lives. Cameron suggests they just hand the information to the police, but Ben is excited to do the research on his own. Cameron is still skeptical about the plan, but drives Ben to Simon's house anyway. He stays outside in the car as Ben goes in to talk to him. Ben knocks on the apartment door, but no one answers. But he doesn't give up and looks under the doormat to find the key. He sneaks into Simon's apartment and snoops around for any clues that relates to Sarah. He finds a box under the bed which has Sarah's stuff inside, including her phone. Meanwhile, Cameron sees Simon getting inside the apartment building and calls Ben to alert him. Simon comes inside the apartment and starts to smoke as Ben sneaks out behind him. Cameron hears a noise and chases after Ben, but Ben and Cameron manage to get away before the man can catch them. Cameron is furious at Ben for treating the case as a game and doing illegal things, so Ben doesn't tell him about the phone he stole. At night, Ben retrieves data from Sarah's phone and successfully finds the messages between her and Nick. In the messages, Sarah seems to be in a severely bad mental condition. She even threatened Nick that she will kill herself, but Nick is nonchalant to her problems. Ben realizes that Sarah killed herself because Nick. The following day, he brings all the evidence to his boss and asks her to let him interview Sophie. Meanwhile, Sophie is nervous about the interview. Bea comforts her and tells her that it will be fine. Sophie's attorney helps her with the answer to the question she will potentially be asked while they drive to the interview. At the same time, Ben is also preparing for it. For the first few minutes, the interview goes as planned. Ben asks her several questions about her affair and Nick's character, and Sophie answers them all truthfully. Then he mentions Sarah's death, which threw Sophie off guard. She claims that she doesn't know what he is talking about, but Ben shows her the final conversation between Nick and Sarah, which promoted Sarah to end her own life. Sophie panicked and walked out of the interview, giving the people more to talk about. Later, they are at home when the interview is aired on television. The last few messages between Nick and Sarah are even enacted as a phone call to make it seem more personal. The detectives are furious as how they didn't know about Sarah. Sarah's brother Simon also watches the interview in anger. The scene then changed 6 months earlier. Simon, who works for a tech company, sees his sister swooning over a man she's dating online. He asks her to be careful at first, but then approves of their relationship after seeing how happy the guy makes her. She had been suicidal for a very long time, but after talking to Jeremy, she has started doing the thing she enjoys again. However, when Simon visits her some weeks later, she is in the worst mental condition she has ever been in. Simon asks her why she hasn't been to work for over a week when she reveals that Jeremy is actually married to someone. She breaks down crying, saying that she doesn't want to live anymore, while Simon comforts her. A few days later, Simon is with her friend Daria at work. Then he gets a call from Sarah. She cries hysterically while apologizing to him. Simon figures out something terribly wrong and runs to her apartment, only to find her dead. Back in the prison, Simon is at work when Detective Roshan visits him. Simon composes himself and greets the detective. Roshan asks him if Sarah revealed the nature of her relationship with Nick, but Simon lies and says she didn't. When asked where he was the day Nick was kidnapped, Simon tells him that he was fishing in the Russian River with his friend Daryl. Roshan asks for Daryl's number and leaves after. Right after the meeting, Simon texts Daryl asking him not to answer his phone if someone calls him. At the same time, Roshan gets a call from Pia. He demands to know if he is doing something about the case. Roshan tells her he is in Sacramento to speak with Simon and hangs up. After the call, Pia notices Nick's picture from around the house inside the box. She goes to the room where everyone is enjoying a family dinner and asks who took the picture of the wall. Sophie Sophie admits to taking them down because she is ashamed to be Nick's wife. The two step aside into a room where Bea says that the text messages didn't sound like Nick wrote them. However, Sophie claims it will be easier if they accept the fact and move on. Bea takes the last picture of the wall and goes to her house. Meanwhile, back in Sacramento, Simon calls Daryl to his apartment and teaches him what he should say while being interrogated. Daryl freaks out and talks about turning Simon in. At last, Simon threatens Daryl to go with the story, clearly hiding something.